This week on the Baseline Podcast, Josh and I are discussing the big trade that the Browns made a few days ago, and that was sending Amari Cooper over to Buffalo. And does this mean the Browns are truly letting go of the season and saying, hey, we're going to tank? Or does this mean, hey, you don't want to be here, we don't need you here? And then we're going to be talking about the college football recap, specifically the Ohio State versus Oregon game. Is Ohio State bad, or is Oregon that good, or is it truly two giants that went toe-to-toe and really came out? One came out on top and one didn't. And then finally, we're going to talk about some baseball. Do the Guardians have what it takes to make the World Series? All that and so much more coming up in Baseline Podcast. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Baseline Podcast. I'm Ben. That's Josh. We are back. It is mid-October, which is just weird to say. I feel like it was just October, the beginning of October. It's just going way too fast. But anyways, we are back at it. I've shaved a little bit, and I realized I looked very pale in the video, so I apologize. I don't know why. I feel great. Maybe I'm dying. I don't know. But anyways, I hope you guys have had a fantastic weekend. I know it's been very consistent, breezy weather here in Hungary. I know it's getting a little colder back in the States. But Josh, how was your weekend? How was the early part of the week? How are you doing?
Yeah, we're good up here, man. We are officially in that time where it's like 30 degrees at night, 60 degrees in the day, like
So short
going
weather.
through for a little bit there, depending on who you are. If you're a football coach, it's short weather all season
Oh, yeah,
long.
100%.
Yeah. But yeah, been enjoying. Well, I didn't get to enjoy it to the fullest over the weekend with college football, but my brother and I had a blast watching the Tribe get that Game 5 win over
Yeah.
Detroit in Scoobel. He was actually in attendance in person. I had to work that night, so I was in attendance on
And
television.
And I'm
But
sure he does it. I'm sure he lets you know about it so often.
I was getting videos of crowd reaction to everything. The Lane Thomas Grand Slam, I got a
And you're
video
like,
of that. I
stop,
got a
please.
got a video of Classe slamming the door in the ninth.
You're
But
like, please
hey, they got
stop.
the job done. They got the job done. It was
Right
it was
now,
a
they're
blast.
not.
Good for him.
Right now, they're not.
Right now we are down 2-0. Outside of that Lane Thomas Grand Slam, the Bats really haven't been alive since game one against Detroit, and that's frustrating. But we can save all that later because we
Yeah,
got
of course.
some even more frustrating stuff to talk about
Yeah,
first going
yeah,
on in Cleveland in
yeah,
another sport.
yeah.
And maybe some people are interpreting this move as we're throwing the season away officially, but Amari Cooper is gone. He's
Yeah, he
gone,
is.
Ben. He wasn't doing much in the offense anyways, contributing a lot to us, leading the
Yeah,
league in drop passes, but Buffalo basically stole him away from us, if you really believe in Amari Cooper. But we've seen
yeah,
Amari Cooper play like this in Oakland, I think, and then went to Dallas, a winning situation, became a weapon. And I could see the same thing happening for Buffalo, especially since they don't
yeah.
have a clear-cut wide receiver one over there and also doing really solid in that division. But are you surprised by this? What was your reaction
Uh,
when you got the news?
no, not surprised at all. I mean, also Buffalo's not really playing in a tough division. So, uh, you know, look, we stole him for a fifth. We get a third out of it. I consider that kind of a win for a guy his age. You get the money off the books. I think at least half of it off the books. You know, I don't know. He looked very non-interested in this season at all from like the beginning. I think that started with the whole Ayuk rumors. I think maybe
Yeah,
kind of ticked him off, and he's kind of like, okay, if you don't want me, then I really
and I
don't
don't want
care.
you. Yeah.
Because like the drops, like a lot of the drops, I'm like, that's just not like him. Like some of those, like even on this past weekend, there was one that yeah, it was a little high, but I'm like, dude, you're getting paid $25 million to make those catches. I've seen Jeremiah Smith catch balls with one hand, and he's 10 years old younger than you. So for me, I guess I just struggle with, I don't know. I wish they would got a little bit more out of it, or gotten a receiver or just something a little bit more out of it. But at the end of the day, I have a feeling behind closed doors he was not happy, and I don't think he was happy they brought Jerry Jeudy in. I don't think like I just think he's been angry ever since they started doing a lot of the offseason moves. Um, and I think maybe it's good for the Browns. Maybe you get to see truly if Jerry Jeudy is your number one, and you get to see what other guys can give you something. So I don't know. I mean, you can't get any worse than what they are right now.
Yeah.
So at that point, I'm like, why not cut your losses before you lose him for nothing? Because we know he wasn't going to resign. That was pretty obvious. He wasn't going to resign. So why not get something you can now, and then and hopefully you can go in the draft and get someone a little bit better.
Yeah, for anyone that was curious what Amari Cooper's season looks like. A 30-year-old wide receiver has 24 catches for 250 yards and 2 touchdowns. Most of that came in week 3 against the Giants when he had 7 catches for 86 yards and both of those touchdowns. But
Yeah.
outside of that, yeah, he's had the first 2 games of the season, he had 16 yards and 11 yards. And then since that Giants game, he's had 35, 60, and 42. And it's not from a lack of targets. Like he got 10 targets in that Washington game and just caught 4 of them.
Yeah. I don't. I just think that it's those things it's kind of like we talk about in baseball a lot. We talk about it not as much in basketball, mainly in baseball. It's like if a guy's on his last year of his contract and he's not doing great, but you know he's got the talent to make another team better, you might as well just see what you can get for him. And I think that's what the Browns did. They saw, oh, we're 1-5. Screw it. The worst, we're getting Nick Chubb back. At least maybe we can get to, 8-9, 7-10, at least look at respectfully. But I think they were like looking beyond this and saying, look, he wasn't going to re-sign with us. It was obvious, and we might as well get something out of it.
Yeah, I guess the other question this leads to, and I brought it up when I initially brought the topic up, is this the Browns throwing the season
No,
away?
no, I don't think
I
so.
don't think I don't think
I don't
so
think
either. I
so.
think if they were throwing the season away,
A
like,
lot more guys would be traded by now. I really do.
well, they might have made a change at quarterback too. I don't know.
I don't know if the quarterback change would have done it because we saw last year what they were able to do. I think what would have shown it to me is that they started unloading defensive players. Not necessarily offensive players, because I think, in the offensive side, they were already just so bad.
They're
Like,
already pretty
but
bad.
what I'm saying
Defense
is
has
that,
been keeping them in every
yeah,
single
so
game
that's what
this
I'm
year.
saying. If you would have seen them unload Del Pitt and maybe JOK and maybe some of the D linemen, and you're starting to see that, then I'm going, okay, they've given up on the season. They're going to just take what they get. And also the fact that Stefanski has not been fired. Most teams that have a drop the way the Browns have had this year, their coach is gone within those first 6 games. I'm not saying he won't get fired. I'm not saying that maybe he's not going to at all. What I'm just saying is that that's a sign that at least they're saying, you know what, we at least have a chance, to
Yeah.
make it, go somewhere.
Like over in New York, the Jets fired Salah, but then they go and make a trade also for Devonta Adams. So I think they're not giving up on the season just yet. I
No,
think they just were very like, okay, Salah's clearly the issue here. We got to get rid of him, and then we got to go get a piece that can help us help Aaron Rodgers out. But we can talk about that trade in a little bit. But in Cleveland, at least, yeah, the defense has been holding us in every game. They're still holding on to Deshaun at
I
quarterback,
mean, heck, our
but
leading touchdown guys on defense.
yeah, Rodney McLeod, 2 touchdowns. It's tied for the lead with Cooper. Watson only has 2 touchdowns. Excuse me, as well. We're the only team right now that doesn't have 20 points scored in a game or 200 passing yards. We're like 0 of 29 or
And
30,
can we
whatever,
also
on our
point
last
out
third
they
downs.
brought in Dorsey, who is like the worst offensive coordinator I've ever witnessed in the NFL.
Buffalo got rid of him and Josh Allen
He's
became
so
better,
bad,
and then
man.
we grabbed him
He's
for whatever
so
reason there.
bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I want to go out and get like Lincoln Riley and just blow money at him and say, we'll bring Lincoln Riley in. Or no, just someone that has some creativity, because the offense looks so dull. It looks like a
Very
kindergartner
dull.
drew it.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's nothing like what Kevin Stefanski's ever ran, and people keep
No,
saying that he's not leading this team. And when he comes at the end of that game last Sunday and says Deshaun Watson gives us the best chance to win, I
no,
know
he
the
doesn't.
two-time coach of the year doesn't believe that.
No,
I
he
know he
doesn't.
doesn't believe that. His hands are tied right now. Like this is all ownership. But yeah, I don't think they're throwing the season away yet, but also wouldn't shock me if they traded not a cornerstone of the roster, but maybe somebody like Njoku or maybe one of the depth pieces on the offensive line or something like that. But
Depth pieces. We don't have an offensive line. What are you talking about?
well, we always got depth. It's just
Oh
always
my
gets hurt, and then at the
goodness.
end of the year we got like all these backups. Yeah, but
And also, what made me realize that they're not shutting down the year is the fact that they are bringing back Nick Chubb and allowing him to play. I think they truly were shutting down the year. They would have just said, "Hey, let's just keep him on IR the rest of the year, let him completely get healthy for next year." But they didn't.
mhm.
They're saying come back and play. So that to me shows that at least they're trying to put the effort to not tank. But I still have this funny feeling they're only going to win about 4 to 5 games, and we're going to have like the top 5 pick. Which, to be honest, after all the years of not having a good first round pick, I'm not opposed.
I'm ready for our first round pick in like 4 years to be
And if
like,
they could
yeah, let me
land
go
like
and get one of
they
these.
could land like a Travis Hunter. Can you imagine Travis Hunter? Oh my word!
That would be cool.
Actually, you know what? Screw it. Go get Jeremiah Smith. Change the laws. I don't care. Go get Jeremiah. But honestly, tell me this: if you took Jeremiah Smith right now, would he be at least in the top 2 of the receivers for the Browns right now currently? If you look at the
Jeremy
roster
Smith is top two.
without
Who
Cooper,
are our top two now? Elijah Moore and Jerry Jeudy.
yes. Tell me
I'd
you wouldn't take him over at least one of them.
I'd probably take him over at least one of them, I think.
Oh, dude, the dude's a specimen. I I
I just
take
still wonder
oh
like about the adjustment from high school to college and then from college to pro, like he's still
dude.
very like
Yeah,
young.
6'4", 210, and straight up muscled out. Yeah, he's about a mini DK Metcalf.
He
That's
it
what he
could
is.
end yeah, he could end up being like a DK Metcalf
Can
or
you
like one of those
imagine?
like
Oh man,
generational wide receivers.
yeah, if the
Like
Browns got if they got him, oh,
yeah, be very cool. Speaking of Browns and maybe 4 or 5 wins,
yeah,
Cincinnati comes to town and Joe Burrow never wins in
we
Cleveland.
are we're losing this game. We are losing
Joe
this.
Burrow's finally gonna get a win in Cleveland.
I hate that I'm saying this because I know my brother's going to listen and he's going to love every moment of this.
Yeah.
But
I got a handful of
I
Bengals fans up here too.
I just can't. Like I can't see it, and it's so I just can't. I don't see how this team scores more than 17 points, and I don't. I think the defense is just gonna they might hold Bengals to 24 points, but I can't see this team until I see them have a successful game offensively. I don't see them winning a game until I see that. And maybe
We
I'm
do
wrong.
have
Maybe
some
I'm wrong.
we do have some common opponents. So Bengals were in that Monday night game with Washington. That Washington won 38-33. There were like no punts or turnovers in that one.
Yeah.
Washington did come out with the win, but it was much closer than our result with them. And then this last week they really struggled on offense against the Giants, but came out with a 17-7 win in that one. And they're going to be on the road in this one in Cleveland, as I said. They're a 6-point favorite, but they're not anticipating a bunch of points scored. Vegas has the total at 41.5 right now.
Yeah, I'm going to say like
Yeah.
24-17 Bengals, and I cannot believe I just said that, and it hurts me as I'm saying it. But that's how little I believe in this offense. Just saying.
Yeah. The one thing I will say is that maybe this will be the first time that we get to 20 points because outside of the opener against the Patriots, they scored 16 against Cincinnati. And then this last one against the Giants, they scored 7. Everybody else has been able to reach that 20-point mark against them. Even Carolina did it. So maybe we can finally get to 20, but I still don't think that we're going to beat Cincinnati. I think Joe's finally going to get a win in Cleveland, maybe to the tune of 26 to 21. But yeah, I'm not feeling too good about that one.
I'm going to make a bold
Um,
prediction that after this week, you'll see Jameis Winston the rest of the year.
that'll be the final straw for Deshaun.
I think so. I think if you go 1-6, I don't know how if Stefanski doesn't walk into ownership and be like, look, you got to at least give me a chance.
Yeah,
Like you got to give
because
me something.
if he goes this whole season the way that it's going and wins like 3 games and gets fired, who's gonna want to go and rehire that guy? Like he's got to have some dignity at the end of the day.
Like I'd walk in and be like, look, if you want me to at least put some wins on the board, I don't care if you want to tank, but at least let me have some wins on the board
Yeah,
and let me do my thing.
yeah,
You know,
yeah. Agreed. Yeah, it is kind of amusing seeing how bad Deshaun can play and continue to hold on to the job. Like we're a franchise that historically changes quarterbacks 2 or 3 times a year
and
when
now we
things don't
won't.
go our way. And now we're sticking with like people are tweeting out all kinds of numbers, like all kinds of like ratings and
He was
percentages
like
and
0
like
for
conversions.
24 on third downs, which I just thought
I
was
think it ended up being like 0 for
crazy.
29 after the end of the game.
Which
Yeah.
is
But
just
it's just
like,
like, dang,
what?
how it's very amusing. Yeah. How bad can he continue to play at quarterback and still hold on to that job? Like it's very
You know what
amusing
it's
to me.
like?
It's
You want
like
to
he's got
remind me
some
of?
kind of dirt on them.
You want to remind me of? It reminded me of like, that car that just doesn't run anymore, but it has that sentimental value, or you paid so much money that you're so scared to lose it. That's
Yeah.
exactly what this is. This is the car in the lot that you personally bought, but is now worth pretty much nothing. But you're so scared to get rid of it because you have so much money into it, and you're so scared to lose all that money that you're going to be able to spend. Right? That's exactly what it reminds me of.
Transmission blows up on it in 6 months and it's just
Yeah,
never the same. It's just always repair after repair after repair. But you're
exactly
like,
what it
oh, but I
is.
spent like 40 grand on it initially. And if I like sell it for only like 5 grand,
Now
then like
watch.
I'm losing so much.
Josh and
But
I are
we're
going
gonna
to
continue to suffer and suffer.
Josh and I are
Yeah.
going to get Josh and I are going to get canceled because we just compared Deshaun Watson to a car. Um,
Well, car's pretty good, but it also you'd think that the way that it's going too, that Deshaun has some kind of dirt on the coaching staff or
oh, he
something to
has
continue
to,
to come in
man.
and play.
Or on the ownership. I don't know, man. It's
Yeah.
weird, man.
Like even the Giants, I
My
think,
friend
have gone
said
through.
My friend said there that he believes that there's like some secret thing in his like contract that they've not like no one knows about that just basically says like you can't bench me
He
unless
has to
I'm
start all
injured.
17 games if he's
Like
healthy.
if he's healthy, he has to play. Like people literally are believing, and I'm like, to be honest, as dumb as D and Jimmy Haslam are, I'm not surprised if that is true. That wouldn't shock me.
Maybe. Yeah, I think it's still just a straight up like we're too prideful to admit that this investment and trade that we made is dumb, so we're gonna continue to ride it out.
Someone asked which was a dumber move, signing Deshaun Watson or letting Joe Flacco go. Like, that is a very valid point. It's a very valid
Yeah,
point.
Joe's playing pretty good in Indy right now. It's tough to
Yeah.
see. Baker
Oh,
Mayfield scoring 51 last week, leading the league in touchdown passes. That's also hard to see.
yeah. It
Uh,
is tough. What else is
yeah,
hard to see is seeing Aiden Hutchinson. Like, as much as I despise Michigan, I hate seeing guys get hurt, and I
that
can't
way.
watch the
Yeah,
replay. I watched it once and I couldn't watch it again, and I. My heart breaks, man. He was having a great season. It was leading the NFL in sacks. Is leading the NFL in sacks, and to see him go down like that just always sucks, man.
yeah, for sure. Did you want to talk about Devontae Adams trade at all before we go into college
I mean,
football?
I'm not shocked. I mean, we all know who's running that Jets organization. Like it's not
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers is very
he
much
makes it
LeBron
sound
James
he
in the
makes it
NFL.
sound like he goes, "What are you talking about? I'm a GM." No, I'm not. I'm like,
I
dude,
didn't have any say, and the owner came out and said I didn't have any say in Robert Salah being fired, but we hear all the comments post game. We
we
see the
know.
history, the way that Rodgers is with all these guys. He's exactly like the LeBron James equivalent in the NFL. When they win, it's all because of him. When they lose, it's all because of his teammates. Can never blame the guy. He's always perfect. Makes the head coaching changes, makes the
I'll
wide
be honest.
receiver
Yeah.
choices. If they pan out, great. If they don't, that's all their fault. Yeah, but when they talked about in Vegas, Devontae potentially being traded, and they threw around names like
Oh, I said the
Buffalo, and
Jets. As soon as I saw the Jets, I was like,
I heard
it's
some
Jets.
people say KC, but I was like, there's no way he doesn't reunite either with Derek Carr with the Saints or go to the Jets. Those are
Yeah.
the only two teams that it's going to work with or that it would happen with.
Yeah.
But he's with the Jets, and like I said, they're 2-4 right now. They're in a division that is being very heavily run away with by the Bills. So there's still a chance that maybe they could cover some ground and get a wild card. You would have thought firing Salah was throwing the season away, but apparently they're still trying to compete, Ben. And Devontae
Yeah.
paired up with Garrett Wilson sounds pretty good on paper.
It'll be fun. It will definitely be fun. I'm excited to watch that one for sure.
Oh yeah. Also excited to talk about this past weekend of college football. I think
Yeah.
all the big matchups that we previewed lived up to the hype.
Yeah.
We had some overtime games. We had some close calls at the end, but we'll lead it off with the Oregon Ohio State one because this one I think lived up to all the expectations. This was number 2 versus number 3 at night in Autzen Stadium, decided by 1 point. I think there are things that both teams did that shot themselves in the foot that prevented them from being able to make this game maybe a little more open. I think there were calls on both sides that affected teams pretty evenly. So I think all that's a wash. But I think when you step away from it and look at this from as an Ohio State fan, you're like, hey, we went to a tough road environment and lost by 1. But I think the way that you guys lost this game is continuing to follow a trend of how you lose games in the big moments.
Mhm.
It's always explosive plays on the defense. Like
Mhm.
I heard Joel Klatt talking about how when you watch the game and when he was watching the game, seems like they'd be very good for like 7 or 8 straight plays. And then there'd be like the one explosive one. And that's been the case in the Michigan games. That's been the case in the Georgia game. But yeah, I think there's a lot of positive to take away from it. But I also see a lot of Ohio State fans saying, "Woe is us! Get rid of Ryan Day. This is the same old Jim Knowles defense." But yeah, I didn't get to watch it. I tried to watch as many clips as I could and read as much as I could from people that did watch it. But I'd love to hear your takeaway on how you're feeling after that game.
Tough. I stayed up for it. And by the way, just for everyone to know, me staying up for a game that starts at 1:30 my time in the morning means I don't go to bed until like 5:30. Just want to point that out. So true Buckeye fan at through and through.
Oh
Um,
yeah,
no, I first off, I want to tell Ohio State fans this. Stop blaming Will Howard. Will Howard played like his best game he's played in a Ohio State
it
uniform.
was
And
honestly.
I'll be 100% honest with you because I coached the position. The plays that he made, the touchdown pass to Jeremiah Smith, that man made it look terrible. And by the way, Ohio State lost, and I want to put this in perspective for people. Ohio State lost their starting left tackle, who had been playing probably All-American level all year. They lost Tigger Shabull at the same time, around the same time. They were playing with two backups on the starting offensive line, was still running the ball, was still making some great throws. I mean, that play where he scrambles out, throws the ball for a touchdown to Jeremiah Smith, beautiful play. Completed 80% of his passes. If
Hmm.
you would have told me before the game that Will Howard would run for a touchdown, he'd throw for two, and he would have 80% completion percentage, I'd be like, oh my word, we won the game by 40. But because that's the level that we thought he might be able to get to. But
You had
I
a bold
but
prediction about Will Howard last week, I
I
think. I can't
did.
remember what it
Yeah,
was.
I just said that he was gonna throw for like 4 or 5 touchdowns because I thought he can do that. But this is the thing. People are always gonna be like, well, he doesn't throw the deep ball. Dude, when you got a Mecca Ibuka, Jeremiah Smith, Carnell, you don't need to throw the ball deep. You don't need to. Now it'd be nice to throw a little bit more, yes. But I'm gonna go back before I get ahead of myself. The last play of the game. Can can we stop like getting on Will Howard's case? Like he tried to make a play. There was no one open. He tried to do what he could to get us into field goal range. So I that to me is bonkers. I just wanted to open up with that. But if we go look at the game as overall, did I have heart attack flashes from the Michigan game? Yeah, I did. And the Georgia game, like it just seemed like one team was ready in the trenches. And I don't know what happened to Jack Sawyer or JTT. Like they just kind of disappeared. There was no pass rush. And I'll be honest with you. I think if there was a pass rush, it might change a little bit. I think it would force Dylan Gabriel to think quicker. Denzel Burke just got toasted and just ate
Burke, I think,
alive.
was targeted eight
And
times, and they caught all eight
yeah,
targets for over 170 yards,
and
some scores.
so that needs to be answered. Denzel Burke needs in, and also I need answers from Jim Knowles and saying why do you not put in your best? Matthews might be your best cover corner man to man, and he was on the bench, right? So I'm very confused about that, and just the way the defensive line played. Like it does worry me. I'm not extremely worried, but again, you said it perfectly. Ohio State went to Autzen Stadium, which by the way they've lost one time in the last like 65 games there, and it came down to the last two plays, and you lost by one. The way the media is making this looks like Ohio State went in there and lost by 50. But Ohio State was a play away from all the things they did. Judkins fumbling the ball, which he never fumbles. These
Hmm.
little things that, again, we both talked about it. What's going to hurt Ohio State in this game if they hurt themselves? And they did that. Now, it is frustrating when someone brought this up. I think it was on Menace to Sports brought this up that like it's very funny that Ohio State, as a 5-star school, can't get a kicker that can kick more than 50 yards. It's just very funny that they can never have a kicker that can kick more than 50 yards.
Trying to find
But
a kicker kick more than 40 in college
yeah, I
seems
know
hard,
it seems
regardless.
hard, but it is fascinating. And again, I go back to the offensive line. Hats off to I forget his name, but he came in at left tackle. Hats off to him. I mean, the offensive line did the best they could. They patchwork they did. That worries me. I mean, he's done for the year. Um, so they got to figure out what they're going to do at left tackle. Tigger Shabull looks like he's going to be all right, but do you go basically 6-man blocking schemes? I don't know. There's a lot to fix. But I think people need to calm down the Ryan Day, and I'm the first one, Josh. You know it. I'm the first one to be like when I think Ryan Day needs to go, and I believe this is on Ryan Day in some cases, but also like this team fought until the end, and they were again not the perfect, but they're right there. And I believe that this will happen. There will be a rematch, and I want Oregon fans and Oregon players to really stop talking as much as they are in the last few days, because if there's one thing we learned about Ohio State. And we've seen it before, and not necessarily maybe in the Ryan Day era, but it was when people start mouthing and they start
Hmm.
saying things. Ohio State usually responds in a very violent way. And so that's when someone said, I really would hate to be Nebraska in 2 weeks,
Hmm.
because Nebraska is going to get a look of Ohio State that I hope is something different. And again, I go back to Will Howard did everything he can. And also, I want to talk about that pass interference call because as someone who coaches the game, and I have a receiver coach that I work with, and he's an amazing receiver coach. He told me the guy engaged inside of 5 yards. He's 5'8", about 170 pounds. When Jeremiah Smith is making his break and disengaging from a guy engaged with him, it does look like a pass interference, but technically where he was engaged, it's not, because of the way that it would have either should have been a no call, which, by the way, all game they weren't calling any penalties when it came to pass interference. So for me, that was very ticky tacky in the moment. Now, if it would have been during the second quarter, I'd have been like, okay, whatever. But in the moment, you haven't been calling that all game, and that's when you decide to call it. Seems a little bit suspicious, but again, that's my
It's
thoughts.
just
I
like,
want to hear your
yeah,
thing.
yeah, that corner being like as small as he was and Jeremiah being like both arms extended, I feel like that's going to get called probably every time with the way it looked.
Yeah,
But
but
to that point too, what was it? Oregon had a touchdown that was overturned and called a pick
yeah.
or something like that, or it was
No,
a
it
pick
was
that was overturned as a touchdown.
it was basically like the beginning of the game, Will Kazmarek, who also left the game with a broken arm on that play. Actually, he didn't actually control the cat. Like, the ball was never controlled, and Oregon came up with it, but they gave it they never reviewed it because Ohio State realized, like, oh crap, this is not a catch. Let's hurry up to the line, and they snapped it. So, I'm not I'm not as salty. I think I'm shocking Josh because I'm not as like angry, I think, as he probably thought I might have been coming out of this
Well, I
game.
didn't I didn't think you would. I think that this loss felt different compared to like some of the other
Yeah.
ones, and it was like with Michigan, it was like not being ready for those moments. It seemed like getting gashed, like
Yeah.
getting like mopped mopping the floor with them, kind of, or
And this this,
in
this
last
game
year's
this game
case,
really
like
wasn't, by the way. This
in
game
last
was
year's
not really
case, like with
mopping.
the final drive being like Michigan killing like
Yeah.
8 minutes off the clock, and then
Yeah.
McCord like not being like ready for the big moments. Like I felt like
Yeah.
this one was a little different, and I wanted to see if like you also thought that as well.
Yeah. I mean, like, I go back to like the slide, like, dude, if he just, oh man, if he I
I
always
think that
if he
what
just pulls
everybody's
it
mad
up
about is
soon,
that that's
man.
a senior quarterback, and if you slide without gaining a first down, the clock is going to run anyways.
No, but no, what I think what they had talked about in the huddle, this is what I'm assuming, is that no matter what, if he slid or whatever, if you look, I think there's a picture of like Ryan Day or a coach like right next to the official. So I think they were planning the whole time, like, whatever happens, we're calling a timeout as soon as he touches the ground. My thing was, I think he tried to get too many yards. If he would have maybe got eight,
Yeah,
it would at
like
least
six
put you in.
seconds. You
Yeah.
don't have a lot of
If you
time.
get 8 yards, that still gives you like a 53-yard field goal, a chance for at least a win. But again, to sum it up, Josh, I think we both can say, oh, I can't wait till Indianapolis. Because I'll be honest, I look at the schedule of Ohio State, the
Penn
toughest game.
State is the
But
only
this
one
is
that
the
could be
thing, though.
tough.
But this, it's like RJ Young said on his show. Penn State's offense barely beat USC, and USC is so bad, like, so bad. And the only reason they won is because their tight end did everything for them. And
Tight end had an
again,
insane day. Why don't we go ahead and talk about that
yeah.
game right now? Because that one was, I think, sick too. I think it was a nice character game for Drew Aller too, because he had a very bad start. Had the three
Yeah.
picks. At halftime they were down. It was 20-6, and then come out,
Again, that's why I'm very
fight
confused
back in
why
the
they're
second half,
why they're
force
third
overtime.
in America right now in the polls. I'm like, did you not watch the game? Did anybody not watch the game? I'm just saying.
Well, it's because they're undefeated and they got some
I
like
know.
more quality wins than some of these
I
guys. Like
know.
we're gonna talk about in the power rankings. Like there's a lot of mid football teams right now. Like
Yeah.
there's a clear cut top tier, and then all these other teams. But anyway, yeah, Drew Aller, I thought from from what I was able to see on tape was not just the little like dink and dunk screens, 5 yard slants that we're used to seeing before, which is why he used to be so accurate. And then when it came to playing Ohio State, Michigan last year, just couldn't get it done. Like he was making throws on the run, he was rolling out, he was throwing it deep downfield. I thought this was a much more different version of Drew Aller than what at least I saw last year. And that's even like throwing the three picks still. Like obviously the turnovers got to get cleaned up if you're on a Penn State fan, you want to see that. But I think you're excited that you come out with this win. I think you're excited to see Drew make some of those big throws and take that next step forward in his development. Probably want to see the run game do a little bit better. Allen only had 56 and Singleton only had 26. But yeah, I thought that this is a game that we learned a little bit. Yeah, maybe Penn State's defense isn't as dominant as what we initially thought, or maybe the offense should have scored more. I don't know, but
That's why I'm thinking about like a Ohio State matchup. Like, how is Penn State going to stop that offense? Because Oregon couldn't stop Ohio State's offense. It was Ohio State who stopped themselves. Like Howard had a
at
fumble
times.
miss snap and then a fumble because they did. If you look at the stats, they scored on every possession except one because of a fumble by Judkins and one because of Howard. And that's why I think that matchup is so interesting to me because the Ohio State defense struggling, but Ohio State offense who's just flourishing at this moment.
Hmm. Yeah, I think I'm not gonna like pamper USC too much here, but I think they're a little bit better in their 3-3 record. Like, yeah, the Minnesota loss was freak. The Michigan game they probably should have never lost. They were able to beat LSU week one, and then
Yeah,
you
but
lose to Penn State in
LSU's gotten
overtime.
really good though. LSU came out of nowhere and is really good now.
Since then, yeah, and let's talk about that game. LSU Ole Miss. That one I think
Old
also
Miss has
went to
proven
overtime, right?
something that we both knew that they were a fraud.
Well, I
Look,
think losing to LSU in overtime at night
no,
in
I
Baton
I
Rouge
know it's
doesn't
not,
necessarily mean you're fraud, but
but
Jackson Dart has 2 touchdowns in 3 SEC games, and I think that is saying like they were never that team. They were just beating up a bunch of bad teams,
yeah,
and now they're in
exactly.
conference play, and it seems like every week is like they're 1-2 now in the SEC too. They lost that Kentucky game. They were able to get by South Carolina, but then LSU, I thought the LSU would beat them a little worse than this, honestly, but this is also like I think a character game for LSU, like to be trailing like late like that, also trailing at halftime. And we saw it against South Carolina. Like this team is battling and not just throwing in the towel because like somebody's coming in and like taking the lead on them, like we would have seen in the past. It's a little more of a mature squad, I think. And they are getting, I think, a little bit better than what they initially were. But yeah, I'm not going to hold this too much against Ole Miss, but the way that they have been playing in SEC conference play, I think just goes to show like, yeah, this isn't one of those tier one teams. This isn't one of those teams that's like very elite offensively and defensively. It's a team that's honestly pretty beatable, maybe by most teams in their conference right now. I would think that even Vanderbilt has a shot to get him. I would think that even Florida could have a shot to go and get him, as they almost did against Tennessee this weekend. But anything else to add to Ole Miss LSU?
No, I just think that I think it's proving one thing that I think we're seeing also in the Big Ten is that there are teams that are like on the cusp of being really good. Like I'll put a high state there as well. Like if they just fix one or two things, they're going to be really good. And I think Old Miss just needs to figure out their offense and figure out what's going on with that. And I think with Ohio State, it's figured out the defense, which feels like repetitive.
Hmm.
But I think there's a lot of teams that are like that, and I think that's why I think the 12 this year might be the most interesting playoff because I could easily see some of these 10, 11 seeds figuring out their feet at the end right time, and they upset these higher seeds because that's just kind of the way it's going. It seems like right now.
Yeah, like when we get into power ranking talk, I one point that I'm going to bring up is that trying to figure out that fifth team is so freaking hard right now because just because you made the playoff 12 teams doesn't mean there's 12 teams that
No,
can come out
yeah,
and win a
exactly.
championship.
Yeah,
There's still the same just 3 or 4 that are capable of
yeah.
doing it. And then there's like all these other teams that don't belong there. And it's like you could rank them in any order. Like the 5 team could be the 12 team for some people. And maybe the way that some of that seeding goes is going to like be proven wrong
And it's like
once we get
RJ
that far.
and RJ Young said on his show. He said honestly, he goes, I would want to be the 5 seed this year. You know why? Because I'd probably be the best non-champion, non-conference
Yep, you
champion
would be.
facing an Iowa State team at 4 or whoever wins the Big 12. Like
Yeah,
literally that is the best spot you could be in. You're going to play the non-power 4 team and then face the worst conference champion. Like you have
100%.
the best chance to make it into the quarterfinal, in the semifinal.
Georgia, Alabama, and Texas. Only one of them can be in the top four. And only one of Penn State, Ohio State, and Oregon can be in the top four. It's wild.
Yeah.
That's how it's going to shake up.
And I think it's going to be hilarious.
Yeah. Uh, Another close game that we previewed, Kansas State and Colorado. Kansas State won 31-28 in this
And
one.
it's proven once again that Colorado cannot win the important games.
This was a big one, and I thought Colorado was gonna make a statement here, but instead Kansas State gets a go-ahead touchdown with just over two
Avery
minutes to
Johnson looked
go.
good too.
Yeah, Avery Johnson did have a good game here. That dude ended up with 224 yards, 2 touchdowns. Also, got a rushing touchdown in this one. And then on the Other side here, Shador was solid, 388 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a pick. Um, this was the least effective we've seen Travis Hunter on
Well,
offense
he
too.
got
He had
hurt, but
three.
he did get hurt though. So
Did he? Okay, I missed
yeah,
that.
he got hurt. He got hurt like midway through the game. So
Okay. Yeah, 3 catches for 26 yards for him, but losing him, that might have been pretty big now, knowing that
oh
information.
well, I saw that even on the off defense side of the ball, like Kansas State was like attacking. As soon as he went out, they were attacking down the field. They were like, okay, yeah, we know you have nothing after him, so
Yeah.
we're just gonna
Like
attack him.
Shiloh Sanders, we ain't scared of that guy. He got
Did you see that video when he got like buckled and he like fell to his knees, like he got stabbed with a sword?
I
Someone,
might have seen it. Someone tweeted
someone
out
did.
like a low light tape of Shiloh Sanders
Well,
from that game.
someone did
Like, oh man.
like a meme where like it looked like a sword went through his gut and he like fell to his knees because the juke was so bad because he literally falls to his
Oh,
knees and they made it to where like a sword was going through his chest and then he because it just I guess because people
dang,
were gonna
yeah, I
make fun of
missed
the
that. Or
Sanders.
I might have seen it and just got lost in all the other low lights.
I really don't think Shiloh Sanders is that good, to be honest with
Me
you.
neither.
I
Me
don't think
neither.
he's that good. Really don't.
Uh, the final game that we previewed, and this one wasn't particularly close. Texas, Oklahoma. This was the
No,
only one
dude,
that ended up being like a real blowout.
Oklahoma's not good. They're not.
Quinn Ewers in his return, 199 yards, touchdown
Yeah,
and
but
pick. So not super impressive.
Texas offense does worry me a bit because they play no real good defense and they're struggling offensively, which does worry me when they do face like I don't know Georgia this weekend. That's what does scare me. I think when they face an actual quality defense, I think this is what's going to worry me. I think a little bit.
I still think that Michigan's defense is respectable
Uh,
enough.
well, that's what I'm saying. Respect.
It's
I'm
not the
talking about
same
an
old Michigan
elite
defense, but
defense. What I'm saying, an
okay.
elite defense, a defense that can make you change what you're doing, and can you make the adaptation or not?
I did think Oklahoma had like a solid defense too, but maybe Tennessee just isn't good in SEC play and only scored 25 on them for that reason. Uh, but yeah, I mean, we will learn a lot from that game. I still do feel pretty good about Texas, but Oklahoma, I mean, the offensive struggles are still there. I didn't think that they'd score a ton in this game. I thought maybe they'd come up with a little more than what they usually would because of it being a rivalry, but yeah, they still got the
And I
struggles on
love when
offense.
the Texas planted the flag through a Baker Mayfield jersey, and then they asked Baker about it. And he goes, "I'm glad that I've graduated and I've been 8 years ago, and they're still thinking about me." And I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I love that. That's just such a
Oh
Baker
yeah.
way to go about it." Yeah, I love that they're talking about me still after eight
He didn't
years.
even do that to them. He did it
No,
against
I
Ohio
know,
State.
and I just why I think it's hilarious because I'm glad that
Yeah.
it's still like ringing in their heads.
Yeah. He made a statement with that one. Yeah. Well, a heck of a weekend there, Ben. So now
Yeah.
after all these final results, why don't we go ahead and update our power rankings and Heisman
Yes.
finalists,
All
which for
right.
me is very hard figuring out
Uh,
that fifth team as I told you.
So I'll go through the power rankings. So Josh, you had Ohio State 1, Texas 2, Oregon 3, Alabama 4, and Penn State 5. I had Ohio State 1, Texas 2, Penn State 3, Georgia 4, Oregon 5. So we'll just do like we did last week. We're just gonna give them all at once. So for me, Ohio State's number. I'm just kidding. They're not number one. But I also
They're number one in the JP poll over at Josh Pate's show.
I know. Well, it's because they're still a good team. Like I love how people think that because Ohio State lost to Oregon, they're like the worst team in the Big
Lost
Ten.
to Oregon by one on the
Merry
road.
Christmas
Maybe home
at
field
night.
advantage. Ohio State flips it to a 1-point win for
Oh,
them. I don't
or how
know.
about on a neutral field in Indianapolis when you're what 100 miles from no
Yeah.
like what 400 miles from Columbus? Yeah, that's gonna be
Which that's what the JP poll's all about anyways, neutral
yeah
field favorability.
yeah. I know. I'm gonna go Texas 1 just because that's where they are. Do Texas 1. I'm gonna do Oregon 2, because look they deserve it. I'm gonna put
Ben's
Ohio State.
conflicted.
I'm gonna put Ohio State at 3, because I still think they're a better team than Penn State. I'm gonna drop Penn State to 4, and it has nothing to do with Penn State winning. But again, we talk about power rankings, not the AP poll. These are
AP
who we
poll
think.
merit counts. With
It's who,
power rankings, I'm trying to figure out the best teams.
yeah, who are the best teams, and I still think Ohio State will beat Penn State, and I think they're still better than Georgia and a few other teams. So Penn State's at 4 for me, and then at 5 I'll have Georgia. So they just kind of slide down a little bit, and
Yeah,
then put up Oregon at the top.
there you go. Speaking of AP and merit and all that, I thought it was interesting that Georgia is ahead of Alabama right now at 5.
Yeah.
Bama's at 7. And I am glad that they only dropped Ohio State to 4.
Yes, I am glad as well. Because if they would have
Yeah.
dropped them farther, I'd be like, seriously? They lost to one while Georgia lost by, it feels like a lot worse
Yeah.
than
If
what
like
they did.
especially I was expecting the AP to drop them below Alabama.
That
And then
shows
just
me
to just justify it, saying Alabama has a better
that
win over
that
Georgia.
makes me believe that there is still hope that it's not SEC bias anymore. There's still a little glimmer of hope.
Oh yeah. Like we got a Big Ten team with a loss and still have three Big Ten teams in the top four right now.
I love it. Love it.
Like if they were
Let's hear.
really out to get, if they were really out to get the Big Ten, they could have Miami, an undefeated
Oh,
team,
yeah.
like ahead
But
of them
I
right
think
now. They could,
anybody that's not stupid enough to put Miami that high.
yeah, they could,
Uh,
yeah. Shoot. Uh, my top five, Ben. I'm pretty on par with you. I got Texas at one, I got Oregon at two, and I got Ohio State at three. And I think there is an argument that you can even still leave Ohio State ahead of Oregon, but I got to tip my hat to Oregon for getting the
yeah.
win. Like
Yeah, same.
so, Ohio State three, Penn State at four. Yeah, I think that I expected a little bit different of a version from USC, but I also think that there's some positive takeaway, like I said, from Drew Aller's play. So Penn State at four for me, and then trying to figure out that fifth. Like, geez, I'm going to put Alabama from 4 to 5 now. I think that they still are a team that can get up for the big games, but it's just like, what are we
You
doing? Like
scare me.
after you lose to Vanderbilt, you have to come out and make a statement against South
And they don't.
Carolina, not trail in the game and escape with a 2 point win. But they got Tennessee coming up, and we'll talk about that game. I think that's a game that they will get up for and win, and I'll explain that a little bit further down the road. But Alabama to me, out of all these teams, like if we're looking at Georgia, who's still struggling against like low tier SEC teams like Mississippi State, Auburn, Kentucky, Miami keeps getting lucky with all these overturned calls at the end of games. LSU, like the fact that they trail and have to come back, like worries me. Ole Miss, as we just said, can't handle an SEC schedule, it looks like. Iowa State really hasn't had a true test yet, even though they're undefeated. They're going to have like some tests at the end of the season. Clemson got obliterated by Georgia at the beginning of the year, so I know like when it comes to top tier competition, they can't really hang right now. So it's just like, okay, if you don't want to put Alabama at 5, tell me who we should put at 5 then. Like, and this goes back to what I said about just because it's a 12-team playoff this year doesn't mean there's 12 teams that can win a title right now.
Yeah, it's true. So with that, we're going to give you our Heisman. Now, I'll give the Heisman list from last week. So Josh had Travis Hunter 1, Ashton Jeanty 2, Cam Ward 3, Caleb Johnson 4, and Jalen Milrow 5. I had Ashton Jeanty 1, Travis Hunter 2, Cam Ward 3, Will Howard 4, and 5 was Jeremiah Smith. I can tell you mine doesn't have too much shifting, so we'll start with number 5. For me at 5, I'm going to put Will Howard. I think Will Howard still deserves to be in there. I think what he did, even in a loss, I mean, dude, I think, again, I say it again, if you look at those numbers, you would think the guy won. Like, just the numbers he had were impressive, and he's continuing to lead a team that is very good. And I'm going to put Will Howard at 4. I mean, sorry, 5.
All right.
Who do you got 5?
Yeah, 5 for me. I feel like I gotta drop Milrow out of here. And I
Please,
hate
thank you.
doing that because I'm just like, who the heck do I put at 5th? And I'm scrolling through and I'm looking for maybe like a hot receiver. And I know you've had Jeremiah Smith on there, and I thought about maybe even Kyle McCord, but I can't do it. What I am going to do at 5 though is stick Shador on here, even in a loss. Like, still continues to ball out. Colorado is 4-2 at the moment. Jackson Dart, I think, still leads the nation in passing yards, but like I said, in conference play against teams that like really freaking matter, he's got 2 touchdowns. I'm not going to stick him in there. All those yards are fake yards against fake teams. And yeah, even in a losing effort to Kansas State, I'm going to stick Shador in here because I think the dude is still balling out. I think he's overcoming a lot of deficiencies on the offensive line. We know that that's always an issue with Colorado, is the pressure that you got to face at quarterback there. We'll see if how long Travis Hunter ends up being out, if that ends up affecting any of his numbers at all, losing a weapon like that. But yeah, I hate putting Shador in here at 5, but I really don't see an argument for many other people, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Number 4 for me. I had Will Howard. I'm dropping Jeremiah Smith out just for, he just didn't have he had a good game. I just think that there's some guys doing other things. For me at 4, I'm actually dropping Cam Ward down to 4. Again, he He does a lot and he's doing a lot, but he's starting to get on the edge where it's kind of like Jalen Milroe a little bit, where it just seems like there's certain times where he's not playing completely up to where he needs to be. So for me, it is Cam Ward at 4.
And I'm going to keep Caleb Johnson at 4. I know I stuck him on there after like the Ohio State game, and that was weird timing, but bounced back this weekend with a big game against Washington, had over 100 yards, and I think a couple scores in that one. Still second in the country in rushing yards. Sticking Caleb or keeping Caleb Johnson at 4.
Number 3 for me is Dylan Gabriel. He finally makes an appearance back in it, and I just think with the game he had and some of the run he had where he kind of just deked out the whole defense. Again, he's a guy that might not stay on here long because I feel like there's going to be some games where he just struggles, kind of like he did earlier in the year. He kind of seems similar to Jalen Milroe, unless the difference is like he does show up in a lot of smaller games, but he's kind of similar in the sense like in big games he looks absolutely tremendous, and then there's some games where you're like, okay. But
That game
again,
against Texas last year where he
yeah,
led Oklahoma to a comeback, that was
yeah.
huge.
So again,
Yeah.
Dylan Gabriel doing what he needs to do right now, and so I'm gonna put him at 3.
All right, 3 for me. I'm holding Cam Ward there. They had a bye this week, but everything you said about him, I think, is pretty accurate. Like I'd like to see Miami not get into these situations against teams that have no business competing with them. They shouldn't be trailing Cal as much as they are. They shouldn't be almost losing to Virginia Tech like that either if Miami is all that in a bag of chips. But uh, yeah, I'm gonna keep him at 3 for now since they didn't play. But yeah, that Cam Ward's stock is definitely falling down a little bit though. I
Yeah.
think overall in the big picture.
Yeah, and I can just tell you my last 2. I'm gonna keep Travis Hunter where he was at 2. Got hurt, but I'm not gonna penalize him for it, at least not yet. So I'm gonna put Travis Hunter at 2, and then at 1 will be Ashton Genty because that man had another 200-yard game and makes football look so easy. And I'm telling you, I don't now with just the way it's going, I don't see how he doesn't win the Heisman, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I had Travis Hunter at 1 last week, and I got to drop him because of the injury. And I mean, overall, it just wasn't a good game. He didn't have enough production that game before he left, and I hope he isn't out too soon. Like I know Quinn Ewers probably would still be a top 5 finalist if he didn't miss as many games as he did, and I hope that doesn't end up being the case for Travis. But yeah, Travis down at 2 and Ashton at 1. Like you said, dude continues to ball out. It's funny. Someone I think tweeted out like a same game parlay they did for a Boise State money line, Ashton GT to finish with over 200 yards and I think over 2 touchdowns, and it still was only like minus 400 or something like that. Like it was still like not even in the plus money because it's just how obviously dominant he's been this year. Like he
It's,
could probably miss the next 3 or 4 weeks and still be the nation's leading rusher at this point, which is crazy to say. But
it is
yeah,
truly wild.
yeah. Depending on how far or how long Travis is out, like yeah, this could be such a wide open race for Ashton Jeanty and the Heisman right now. And it's very cool to see. Um, I think in our lifetime, Ben, have we ever seen like it's hard enough to see non-quarterbacks, but have we seen a non-Power Five Heisman winner in our lifetime?
No,
I'm trying to think of that
no,
right now.
not in our lifetime. No,
I don't think we have.
no,
It's always like one of the best players on the best teams every
yeah.
year. But yeah, this we've seen some like end up being finalists before, but this would be like monumental in our college football fandom if something like this happened.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. So with that, we're gonna just do a quick rundown of some of the games, and then we'll finish up with baseball. And yeah, it's electric right now.
Yeah.
Electric.
So, um, let me go ahead and pull this up here real quick. Loading up,
Loading up.
but loading up. Okay, here we go. I think the big one, the big headliner this week is Georgia at Texas. Two big SEC powers, and it is at Austin, Texas. Uh, we're gonna learn a lot about both teams here. I think Georgia's been struggling against some of the lower level competition. You want to see what Texas can do against like a true test like this. So I'd love to hear your thoughts first. I got some of mine, but go for it.
I I think for me, I really think this game's going to come down to the trenches. I think whoever controls that off, I know it sounds very cliche, but I think whoever controls that line of scrimmage is, I think, going to have a big impact. Because I think if the defense of Georgia can keep, and again, the struggles of Texas a little bit offensively, if they could somehow control that, I think they keep it a low scoring game, which is where I think Georgia needs to be, because I don't think Georgia has the explosive offense like they've had in the past. So for me, I think they need to keep it low scoring. And I actually believe that this is going to cause chaos in the world of sports, but I do believe that I think Georgia's going to be able to keep it within range in order to win this game. And I think Georgia comes out with a victory. And I'm going to say the final score is going to be 28-21 Georgia. I think they're going to come out with a victory because I just think that maybe Texas is not completely ready yet to be that center of all the attention.
Hmm. Since the loss to Alabama, Carson Beck has been 23 of 29 for 240 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks against Auburn. This last weekend against Mississippi State, he was 36 of 48, 459 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks. So getting plenty of production out of that dude. I'm going to disagree with you though. I'm going to go ahead and say that I think Texas is ready for this. I think it was great getting Quinn Ewers back this last weekend. A game that I never doubted that they'd win, but still a good enough defense in Oklahoma that it's like a good tune-up for him. Because like you said, Georgia's going to be one of those teams in the trenches. That's why they won 40 some games in a row or whatever it was, just
Yeah.
because of dominant offensive and defensive line play. And we initially thought at the beginning of the year that Texas definitely did have that against Michigan, but we're finding out that Michigan isn't exactly Michigan. But they could still be that. And we'll find out against Georgia. But I think that this program has been making steps to get to this point for a while. Like Steve Sarkisian's been on the recruiting show, has been on the transfer portal, building this program up to this point. And last year they got to that playoff point, and I think this year is when they can really seriously be a real contender for that national championship. I'm gonna go ahead and say that they come out here and win against Georgia. And I think it's going to be a little more high scoring than what you think. If Georgia does win, though, I think it does have to be a little lower. But Texas in this one, I think Texas can go ahead and put up 40, just like Alabama did. I'll give them even 40 and give me Georgia 38. I think it'll be close, but I think Texas will do just enough. Maybe that home field advantage will be good.
Like an Oregon High State game all over again.
Pretty close, yeah. Yeah, I think that this is going to be, come down to like that coin flip at the end. And sticking in the SEC, Alabama at Tennessee.
Ooh.
The last time these teams faced off at Tennessee, that was a heck of a game. That was when Tennessee really had their we're back moment. But it is a couple years removed now. We've been seeing this Tennessee team struggle in conference play, Ben. We saw them almost lose to Florida this last weekend. That's how bad it's been. But Alabama also hasn't been looking so hot either since that Georgia win. Somebody's got to come out here and prove themselves this week. And it's also going to be a second loss for somebody here, and potentially, I only say potentially, jeopardize their position in the college football playoff, because maybe 2 losses will be too much. There's going to be a handful of 2-loss teams that probably get left out. But this is important. This is an important game nonetheless for these teams. So Alabama at Tennessee, what are you thinking?
I'm going to go, I think Tennessee's ready. I also think Alabama's not as good as what people think. I'm going to go Tennessee wins this game. Let's say, people are going to hate me when I say this. I'm going to go Tennessee's going to win 42 to 35 or 31. I think 42-31. I just think this game is going to be stupidly high scoring because neither defense I don't think is very good. So I'm going to go 42-31 Tennessee.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think Bama's as good as everybody thinks either, but I have seen them play very well against another SEC power, and I haven't seen Tennessee do that yet. I think that Bama and Jalen Milroe are going to rise to the occasion again, and Jalen's going to have one of those games that makes you think, why isn't this guy a Heisman finalist? And you look at how he plays against bad teams, and you're like, oh, that's why. But if we are sticking to what history has said about Jalen Milroe, this is going to be a game that they get up for, that they're going to win. Everybody's going to be like, yeah, Bama and Jalen Milroe are back. I don't think it's going to be a blowout, though. I think it's going to be pretty close, like you said, and I think there will be a lot of points. Give me an Alabama 45-42 win. thriller.
Hey, you know what? Some of us have to be excited
This
about it.
is this is the most we've differed, I think, on these games.
This is
It's going to be
true.
good. It's going to be
Be
good.
true.
Somebody's going to have some nice bragging rights next weekend.
I know. I know.
Um, let's move over to the Big Ten.
Yeah,
We have Nebraska, who's I think unranked right now, which I'm not sure why.
because
That
I
undefeated,
don't think they have very good wins. I think they're just wins are against a
that's
lot
got to
of
be
not.
why.
Yeah.
But we also see some teams with multiple losses that don't have any good wins either.
Michigan.
Looking at Michigan. Looking at
Michigan.
Michigan. Yeah.
Michigan. Sorry,
And we'll
what?
talk about that game too. But
Oh, goodness.
Nebraska at Indiana. This is, I think, the big noon kickoff. And if you would have told me this was going to be,
Overrated.
if you would have told me this was going to be the big noon
Sorry.
kickoff game before the season, I'd have been like, huh? Nebraska at Indiana, but Ohio State at Marshall was also a big noon game. I would have
Um,
thought, okay, maybe Nebraska panned out and Indiana sucked, but this is going to actually, I think, be a fun game.
I-
And I don't know who wins, but this is, like you said, very much a test for both of them because Nebraska doesn't
overrated.
have that solid win yet, and Indiana, I don't think necessarily has a solid win either. And I can't wait to hear you say who you think is overrated, unless it's both of them.
Dude, Indiana's overrated. Like they've played no one. Like if you look at their schedule, they've played no one. So
We're going to look at it right now.
the
So,
people that are adding me like, oh, Indiana's ahead of Ohio State in the Big Ten standings, and I'm like, yeah,
not many people, though.
have them go to Oregon and try to play them at night. I guarantee Oregon wins by 4 touchdowns. Like I just cannot wait till Indiana plays Ohio State because I think there's the whole thing of like, they smell the salt or whatever when you realize that, oh wait, yeah, we're normal Indiana. Like again, this is nothing against Indiana. It's awesome to see they were at 6 wins, but also we saw that
Yeah.
happen. We saw that with Penix, and what happened? They played good teams, and what happened? They lost. So for me, I have to see it beating a team like a Penn State or a Michigan or a Oregon. And to be honest, I think Nebraska wins. And I think that sets up for a great game next week against Ohio State. I think it will be a top 25 matchup against Ohio State with Nebraska winning. And I think Nebraska wins. I'm going to say it's going to be 28 to 10. No, not 10. I'm going to give them more than 10. Let's go 28-17 Nebraska.
So Indiana's schedule this year, they've defeated FIU, West Illinois, UCLA, Charlotte, Maryland, and Northwestern.
All terrible.
It's nothing. It's nothing
Absolutely
to it's
terrible.
nothing to brag about. But we also, at the beginning of the year, when we were previewing all these conferences, said that Indiana was in the no shot category.
You know
So
what?
I got to
You
give them a
know,
little bit of flowers to
I
be
gave them a
6-0
little
at this
credit.
point.
I gave them credit. I just
I did
saying
not.
that I'm just saying they're overrated. That's all I'm saying.
Yes. So they got to play Nebraska, Washington, Michigan State, Michigan, Ohio State, and Purdue to end the year.
There's
And
a good chance they go 10-2. There's a great chance they go 10-2.
yeah, I don't think anybody's like necessarily putting them in like college football playoff contender
No.
category, but if you want to like call them like a really solid Big Ten team, maybe like the way that we sometimes view Iowa or the way that we sometimes,
Used to view
view
Michigan State. Used to view Michigan State.
Minnesota or yeah, also that. Like I think they're that. Like they'll probably beat the teams that they should and they'll probably lose to the teams that they shouldn't.
Yeah,
And
agreed.
yeah, all that being said though, I do think this is a W for Nebraska. I think that they'll come in here, uh, maybe not win by what was the score that you gave?
28-17.
2017. Yeah, I guess that's about like what I'll say too. I'll give Nebraska 31-20 over here.
Look at us
Um,
agreeing. Look at us.
yeah, there you go. We finally got one.
There we go.
Um, sticking in the Big Ten, Michigan at Illinois. This is a battle of top 25 teams, but
This is gonna
potentially
be the
not for
ugliest
long.
game, to watch of all time.
I
It's gonna be
think
so
like
ugly.
the last several times they've matched up, it's been ugly too.
This is
Like
just gonna be,
Illinois almost
but it's
gotten
just gonna be
Michigan
gross, man.
before.
It's gonna be so gross to watch. I'm gonna say this now. You don't even have to talk about it. Illinois wins this game. I Mainly because I'm just so tired of people putting a team that does not deserve in the top 25. Dude, there are so many teams, Nebraska, and there's so many other teams that deserve to be in the top 25. I'm saying Illinois wins this game. This is gonna be a very ugly game. I'm gonna say like 17 to like 9. That's what I'm gonna say. That's literally what I'm going with. 17-9, Illinois.
I do think
You can't tell me Michigan's offense is going to be able to put up more than okay, maybe the 12, but I'm going to go 17-9, but I just can't see it.
it's tough for me, dude, because Illinois just had a 50-49 win over Purdue
I
in
know, I know.
overtime last weekend.
Yeah, Purdue's offense is better than Michigan's.
Illinois also lost 21-7 to Penn State. That's their only loss though.
Yeah,
They've won all the games they should up to this point. Like we didn't
17-9.
think that yeah, Michigan actually is the favorite in this one, 3.5, and they've been getting
Gross.
by. They got by USC by 3, they got by Minnesota by 3.
This
And then
offense
yeah,
is
they
so bad.
lose to Washington. Yeah, the offense is bad.
So
We at
bad.
least know that Illinois' offense can score,
That's what I'm
as we just
saying.
saw in
Yeah.
that Purdue game. And yeah, maybe being able to like have that capability of scoring. Michigan does not have the capability of
They
scoring a whole
don't.
lot.
They don't.
Illinois at least does. And even if you think that Michigan has like somewhat of a defensive edge, I don't think it's a ton. I think Illinois can score just enough, but yeah, this game usually is ugly. Uh, and I think Illinois will win in an ugly one to the tune of you said 17. I'll give it a 19 to 17. It's going to be close. But yeah, if you like ugly defensive football,
No, I don't
this
think it's
game is
ugly. I don't
definitely
think
for
it's
you.
ugly defensive football. I think it's just ugly offensive football that just leads
Ugly
to
offense,
defense.
low scoring. Yeah, like stuff where like maybe we'll have a defensive touchdown here or two, but we'll wrap it up here. I think that this game is kind of interesting as well. Notre Dame at Georgia Tech.
Mm.
Notre Dame still hasn't lost since that Northern Illinois loss at the beginning of the year. Um, Georgia Tech um is 5-2 right now, and they have a solid offense. They have wins this year over um see, I guess their most notable wins are Duke and North Carolina. They lost to Louisville, they lost to Syracuse. Um, and on the flip side, Notre Dame, since that Northern Illinois loss, they've come out and have been able to beat Purdue, blasted Purdue, won big against Miami. They got past Louisville and then they crushed Stanford the week before. They're beating a lot of teams that they definitely should beat. Georgia Tech's gotten close a couple times. This is at Georgia Tech at 3:30. Notre Dame is favored by 11.5, but I did think that there was maybe some upset potential here. I'm gonna go ahead and take Notre Dame to win anyway, though. But curious, Ben, has Notre Dame uh put that loss maybe behind them? Or is this one that maybe they could end up losing on the road, you
I
think?
mean, I think they could lose it. I just think they're going to be a little bit more talented, I think, than Georgia Tech. So I'm going to give them a slight edge in this one. I'm going to say 20. Let's go 27 to 20 Notre Dame in this one.
Yeah, I think that Georgia Tech can cover that point spread. Maybe Notre Dame comes out and wins like 30-23, but yeah, I am putting this one on our schedule because I think it does have some upset potential there. Maybe we'll have some other upsets this weekend from some of these other games, but like out of the ones that I was looking at, I thought maybe that had the most potential here. Maybe
Yeah.
maybe Louisville can get over Miami. Um maybe IU can get ahead of Nebraska. I don't know, but that's not really an upset anyway since they're the only ranked team here.
Yeah.
But I think most people would pick Nebraska. Uh, let's see what else is there. Potentially Arkansas, they're home against LSU. If LSU, like how much can LSU trail and come back? You got to think about that maybe. Um, UCF, they look like frauds. They're now 3-3 after that 3-0 start. They're at Iowa State. Maybe they can get up for one game. I don't know, but yeah, maybe some upset potential in some other areas, but I thought that one was maybe the one that had the most likely chance to happen.
Yeah.
So there's our five.
And now we finish up with a nice little quick discussion about baseball.
We do.
Baseball.
We do. So, my World Series prediction of the Padres and Astros is officially laughable. Both teams are out. The Padres
Hey.
went scoreless for what was it, 24 straight innings after taking that 2-1 lead. I made fun of the Dodgers for going bullpen in a must-win game and it ended up working out, and they slammed the door on the Padres. And now they're in a pretty competitive series with the Mets so far. Over in the American League right now, the Cleveland Indians did manage to go ahead and get a win over School, as we said leading off the show. That was something I never saw coming. but the bats are still cold outside of that Lane Thomas grand slam. We've been very cold since game one. We left so many men on base. We had so many bases loaded situations in game two, and Garrett Cole just continued to get out of jam after jam and make me frustrated. But I also have been pretty high on New York most of the season. It's just once the Astros got in, I was like, I can't not put them in the World Series and put them in. But New York is scary. Aaron Judge finally got a home run in the playoffs too. Uh, but you did have Cleveland as your World Series pick in the American League initially, Ben.
Yes.
How are you feeling about some of these last few results, what you've been seeing from the team's performance so far?
Well, mine's going to be sucking here soon. Because I think the Yankees, maybe they will by the end of when this video posts, but I think they're going to get pretty close to a sweep because I don't see things changing anytime soon, at least with the way the pattern's going. And I I don't believe the Dodgers will finish it out. I just have this weird feeling that somehow the freaking New York Mets of all teams are going to make the World Series.
The
And I
Miracle
can't.
Mets.
Oh, and if it's New York versus New York, I'm just going to stop watching baseball. I just can't see a big. Oh, just can't see one big market have the whole series. It just I can't. It's just awful.
Yeah, I mean, I think the league is going to be excited either about a Subway Series. We got that, I think, at the late 90s. They faced off, or getting to see Shohei Ohtani versus Aaron Judge will also be fun for the league to get that. But I mean, we see small market teams get in all the time and win it too. So
Yeah.
it's not like this is a very rare instance, I think, where most of the big payrolls ended up being like the finalists in both leagues. But the hope that I'm clinging to in Cleveland, I knew that our starting pitching was going to be an issue. I think Condon, Cole, and Cortez crush the guys that we've been throwing out there, which has been Boyd, Bybee, and Cobb. It's been terrible. I trust our bullpen way more than New York's. And then you look at the bats, it's like New York has been heavily led by two guys, Soto and Judge. And if Judge, who usually is cold in the playoffs, continues to stay cold, then you got to feel maybe good about what your bats could do. Maybe it's a little more even. Maybe you get like a couple games where you can get some big hits, but we had plenty of opportunities last night with like
Yeah.
two on and no out or two on, one out or the bases loaded and couldn't get anybody home. It's very, very frustrating to see that. Um, Outside of Stephen Kwan, we really haven't seen much consistency out of any of the nailers. We've seen Fry get clutch sometimes, but also be largely cold. But yeah, Kwan will get on, it seems like, and then nobody can bring him home. But yeah. We get these next three in Cleveland, though. Hopefully, this series goes to 6 games. I'd hate to see it end up being a sweep like that. But hey, this season, as far as I'm concerned in Cleveland, like as frustrating as it is to see us in some of these games, this season they overachieved. Like they weren't supposed to get this far as I'm concerned, with the way that the starting pitching has been. But yeah, you get super elite bullpen, and then um the bats have done enough up to this point. But yeah, if this is the end, if we end up coming back next week and we do have a World Series matchup when we record, which we should because game fives are this coming weekend. And by the time that we finally get next week's show out, we'll probably have one. But yeah, hopefully, I mean, I'm hoping Cleveland. I have hope for Cleveland, but it's not looking good right now. But if this is the end, as far as I'm concerned, it's been a successful season.
Bit more successful than the Reds. But yeah. So that's the baseball talk. That's the football talk. That's the everything talk, I guess, for the day. We hope you guys enjoyed. Again, let us know in the comments what you think of our power rankings. What do you think about the matchups? Are you shocked that Josh and I don't agree more right now? Or whatever else is on your mind, let us know in the comments. That really allows us to kind of engage with you and see what's going on. Once again, if you love watching on YouTube, go click that thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. Let us know that you are tuning in. It's always fun to see and hear from where you're from. Maybe that's what you do below. Where are you from? Because I hear people from Europe that listen to us and from America, so it's kind of fun for me to hear people that maybe they just watch us because they like our expressions. It's just weird.
Let's get some Josh Pate action going. They're watching us in, X city, this state,
Yeah,
X city, that state,
a little weird.
and also Paris, France. Thank you for
Also,
tuning in,
Paris,
Paris.
France. And
Yeah.
yeah, so it's fun. We enjoy it. Also, if you like just listen to us in the car. Then make sure if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, make sure you let us know by favoriting it, star it, share it with friends and family. And also guys, please be safe out there. I know that as the halfway through October, who knows? It might be winter soon in Ohio. Who knows? But be safe out there. Hope you guys have a great weekend. I know Halloween is next week, so it's not this weekend, so it's next week. But yeah, go watch some football, watch some baseball, watch some soccer if you want, or curling or whatever you're into, and stay safe. Until next time, we'll see ya.